Video games have been a controversial subject ever since they became a part of the mainstream entertainment industry. Some teens would say they couldn't live without video games. Some adults, parents for example, would say video games are dangerous. A paranoid parent could see his or her child going out and stealing a car for possession of Grand Theft Auto. On the other hand, a lot of parents and teachers rely on computer programs to help teach children early on. There are too many different types of games to say that all games are bad, but there seem to be a whole lot of games that aren't very beneficial either. We're not saying games are bad, we're not saying they're good. We're going to explore gaming in a different light. Is gaming a positive thing, or is it a negative thing? How does the video game industry affect our society?
We live in a very negative world with a lot of stupid stuff going on. We have war and natural disasters, people dying. Sometimes it's just good to get away from all that and just play a video game and relax. The most popular games are the real violent, like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, and that's where a lot of the negative feedback from parents comes from. But people need to realize that there are a lot more other kinds of games like Portal and Zelda. They're all very stimulating and brain building, and they can help build teamwork and they can help build creativity.
But even some violent games can be helpful. The Call of Duty games and the Battlefield games, those can help relieve anger, like you just had a bad day and you just want to hit something. I remember one of the first games I played was a game called Kingdom Hearts 2, and that was the first game I really got into because I thought it was a lot different from everything else. It had an interesting storyline sort of thing. It had RPG elements, which I had never come across before. Some good memories and a lot of not so good memories of rage quitting.
One of my favorite memories was playing Sonic Adventure 2 for the first time. I was living with my dad in the countryside, kind of a weird time, and that was my first action game. Everything about it amused me and intrigued me. The music was great, the story was pretty weird and awesome at the same time. The sense of speed you got, it was just a whole new thing, because all I had was racing games and stuff for the N64. Games are one of the most nostalgic things, and not only do you remember the game, you remember things that happened when you were playing the game, like how I remembered living with my dad in the countryside. And games kind of link you with important times of your life, just like a song or a movie does. Sometimes you kind of grow up with game series, and you grow up and they evolve, and it's just real interesting.
The first game I played that had any impact on me was Street Fighter, because that kind of sparked this whole competitive thing with me to just practice what I had. It's a good way to just pass time without sitting in a chair and watching television.
It brings out the inner side of you. You can kill people, steal cars and stuff, but in real life you do that, you go to jail. So that's why I like gaming.
Drone strikes, the military, these unmanned aircrafts are being used. They're essentially deadly video games. These people are gaming all the time, so it has real world applications, I think. You're going to see old folks' homes. Instead of people sitting around, I think you're going to see a lot of people gaming. I know I will. If I make it that far, I'm going to be sitting there playing something, shooting teenagers on my wireless Xbox Live account.
I can admit, the video games can be a distraction. I am not the best when it comes to time management. I often ignore my homework for the greater good of video gaming. It never really helps, and I'll have to make up work or cram, try to study for tests.
One of the biggest problems with games is that They can kind of bring you to an unrealistic state of mind. They can make life seem a bit simpler, you know, kind of brings you out of the real world, and then when you have to go out on your own and like get a job, it's a whole lot different.
Video games can cause violence in certain people. Some people may use video games as a way to relieve stress, while others may just take too much violence from it and react in the real world. They might actually go out and do something that they saw in the video game if it seems not that bad in the game, or they may just get so mad at the video game that they react in violent ways towards other people or things.
The biggest problem I have with video games is that it's not conducive to an active lifestyle. These kids spend 10, even more hours a day doing nothing but using their fingers and their eyes. When these kids don't get up but every couple of hours or so to grab a Pepsi and sit back down, they're consuming thousands of calories and expending next to nothing.
It lacks the human interaction. I know you can do online gaming, and there's some communication that can go on with that, usually fairly negative, by the way. But you don't get out. Get some sun. Why don't you go out and hit the weights and do some running?
Sometimes when I'm at school, I forget about being in school and I start daydreaming of video games.
Video games. Do they distract you from the world's problems, or do they distract you from your schoolwork? Do they help build your brain, or do they help melt it? Do they prevent violence, or do they help cause it? In truth, it all depends on your point of view. You can't just listen to a parent's opinion or a teenager's opinion. It is a very controversial subject and must be looked at with an open mind.